Hello everyone again. A warm welcome to all of you and many thanks for joining us today for our side event on the Cool Up program. My name is Nishan Sürmeli. I am the Cool Up program manager and an associate director at Guidehouse. I'm very excited to host this side event at MOP for our program Cool Up, which is focused on upscaling sustainable cooling in the MENA region. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, experts on various aspects from our program partner organizations, as well as our senior official from our supporter, the German government. Thank you for making the time to be here with us today. With this, I would like to invite Mrs. Elizabeth Munset, Deputy Head of Unit from Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, BMU, for her opening remarks, please.
Good morning and or afternoon or evening to everybody, wherever you are situated right now. I don't know what time you have. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the German Ministry for the Environment to this side event that will introduce the new Cool Up program. Our ministry supports this program through the German International Climate Initiative, and this national climate funding instrument is probably well known to the Montreal Protocol family by now, given that since the program was launched in 2008, more than 750 projects on climate protection and biodiversity all over the world have been supported. And our project partners traditionally are preparing information to more participants. The total funding volume by now has reached more than 4.5 billion euros, and I think it's about 60 million in the cooling sector. Cooling questions have been addressed by quite a number of these projects, and in many of these projects, the aspect of establishing energy efficiency and climate-friendly cooling systems that use natural refrigerants was prominent. However, the last 10 years were the hottest in recorded human history, and greenhouse gas emissions globally are still on the rise, including fluorinated gases. And to the extent the world's temperature is rising, the demand for cooling is as well increasing considerably, posing an additional challenge for the world to win the race against climate change and to achieve the targets of the Paris Agreement. At the same time, Montreal Protocol parties need to prepare for the implementation of the Kigali Amendment. Cooling represents a large portion of energy consumption already today, and cooling systems such as room air conditioners are often inefficient and still rely on refrigerants with a high global warming potential. It is essential to meet the increasing cooling demand worldwide without dramatic climate or other adverse environmental impacts. And we believe it is vital to pave the way towards cooling systems today that operate as sustainable and climate friendly as possible, and to avoid further technology changes in the future. The approach taken by the Cool Up program in this respect is of an overarching nature. It is based on four synergistic pillars. Firstly, the intended measure will support the phase down of HFCs in our partner countries, which is important for the Kigali Amendment. Secondly, with a view to reduce national energy consumption, which is important for Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC. One project element is to replace inefficient cooling appliances by future-proof alternatives. This includes also safe disposal of refrigerants. Thirdly, training measures and awareness raising will improve to maintain the efficient operation of cooling appliances. And last but not least, we will address the need to reduce the cooling demand. We are happy and very thankful for the willingness of our partner countries, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey, to participate in this Cool Up program, enabling a continuation of our support to the MENA region in the transition to green cooling. Together with the excellent experts of the implementing consortium led by Guidehouse, this project has the potential to contribute greatly to the uptake of sustainable cooling technologies and practices in the region, and maybe in other regions then as well. The German Environment Ministry is looking forward to the implementation of the Cool Up approach natural refrigerants and ambitious energy efficiency standards will be the choice for the future. And I wish you all a useful and interesting meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Munset, for your time and your insights and support of the CoolUp program. I would like to invite Maxim Sulkov, a program specialist, Montreal Protocol Unit and Chemicals from UNDP, to provide his presentation. Hi, Maxim, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure for us to participate in the consortium of partners in this innovative and very important program. And we, from our side, from UNDP side, welcome everyone to this event. Thank you for your participation and your time. And our greetings from our regional hub center in Turkey, in Istanbul. We would like to say that indeed the overarching theme of the CoolUp program, which is supported by the government of Germany and the IKI Foundation, is aimed to achieve a comprehensive understanding and realization of the potential for energy efficiency through a sustainable cooling approach. And that, in our opinion, will help turn the climate mitigation ambition into a reality on the ground. The benefits we see in this program, they focus on the exploration of different approaches to cooling efficiencies that will allow to decrease the mentioned cooling demand and usage through several measures, such as what is planned to do the national assessments in all participating countries in terms of the what is happening in cooling sectors, and to identify priorities of actions that should be taken in the future. The policy level work, which is important, is the development of related roadmaps for action to transition from high energy intensity in such cooling appliances or applications to more efficient models. The usage of MAPs, the minimum energy performance standards, that could apply as to manufacturing of such appliances, so to the cases where there is no manufacturing in the country, but importation of such products from abroad. And so these standards will be able to help send a signal outside of the countries to the suppliers on what type of equipment will be preferred in the future at the national markets, domestic markets. The program will also look into the other measures like building design, energy management systems, which relate to active and passive type of measures, which could be useful in embracing this cooling approach in its entirety. And I would like to mention and articulate that the financial considerations that could help achieve the needed scale of the national interventions is also very important. In this way, the project will combine, if we use the terminology of the impact investment, is globally that those financial and non-financial goals will be on the agenda. So on one hand, it will be possible to ensure the operational savings from the better technology. On the other hand, the mitigation of the climate change processes will be put on track to protect our planet through the deployment of low carbon cooling technology. In this way, the project is of innovative spirit, and it will complement the future action of the participating governments with respect to the Kigali Amendment and the Paris Accords. And again, from our side, we thank all participants for your interest in this project. And from my side also, it's a pleasure to mention that we are part of the consortium, and under the leadership of the Guidehouse, with support of the Eco Research Institute, with support of the Franco School of Finance, the Technology School in Dresden, ELK, with our colleagues from partner governments. We will be today presenting the additional information to outline the scope of this project, its intentions, with one case study, which will be also presented today from the field. So thank you. With this, I pass the floor back to Nessim.
Thank you, Maxim. Thanks for the introduction and your insights. With this, we are going to now move into more details of the CoolUp program and our approach. I will start with giving some information, and then I will hand over to my colleague Barbara for the details. Next slide, please. So, as briefly mentioned by Ms. Munset and Maxim already, our program is supported by the International Climate Initiative and the German government. And it's a 6-year program. It started in December 2020 and will run until January 2027. The duration itself is, we see that is already an enabler to create the acceleration of sustainable cooling technologies. As you all know, many countries face a range of energy challenges and the effects of the climate change due to rapidly growing urbanization and also the already troubled energy infrastructure. And as it is in the whole globe, cooling constitutes a major source of energy consumption. And in the MENA region, it's the major source of energy consumption, and it is, as it is in the whole globe, growing considerably. So the CoolUp program aims to promote the accelerated technological change, and we are going to address cooling demand reduction and also using sustainable cooling technologies in order to support early implementation of Kigali Amendment and Paris Agreement. Next slide, please. As we have mentioned, our partner countries in the CoolUp program implementation are Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon. These countries, although they have differences in their regulatory status, economic conditions, the cooling market, they also share some common challenges like the rapidly growing cooling and final energy demand and structural energy sector challenges. We would like to cooperate with our partner countries in our program framework, but also to use the learnings of the program during the implementation and make it available for the whole MENA region. Next slide, please. We understand that, as in all sustainability discipline, creating a sustainable cooling transition is a multi-sectoral, multi-dimensional issue. And for that, to tackle this problem, our consortium is formed of several experts organizations. As Maxim summarized, I'm not going to repeat it again, but we think that the expertise brought by the international expert organizations on the right-hand side and the in-country experience, the knowledge of regulatory, cultural, and economic situation in the countries brought to the consortium by the partners shown on the left hand of the image are particularly important to make the implementation of the CoolUp program is a success. And with this, I would like to hand over to Barbara to explain you the CoolUp program framework, components, and the dynamics.
Yes, thank you very much, Niesen. My name is Barbara Schrey from Öko-Research, and I'm welcoming you also all very warmly to this event today. I would want to explain a bit more in detail what the CoolUp program is about and in what respect it is holistic. This program is addressing different needs and objectives. On the one hand, it's addressing political needs and objectives through the support of the Kigali Amendment and the Paris Agreement. We heard that from Mrs. Munset already, that this is like really key, and this is addressed very prominently in various activities. Furthermore, also on the financial side, we are supporting in the developing of financial models to boost the sustainable cooling applications in our different partner countries. And also on technical side, enabling the use of natural refrigerants and also other energy efficient solutions is contributing to mitigation of the rising cooling demand. This approach that is labeled as a holistic approach has not only like a very singular application in its focus, but it's going across segments. It's addressing refrigeration and air conditioning, both in commercial and residential applications. We are not just looking at refrigerants, but this holistic approach is implemented across the value chain. So it looks at both the demand of the energy consumption and tries to reduce that, as well as the HFC phase down, but also the replacement and the safe disposal of the F-gases previously used. And in general, it's aiming at improving the operation of the appliances and also into training and awareness. So we are trying to bridge between the different worlds of energy efficiency and refrigerants, and also in this way to create a linkage between climate change and protection of the ozone layer. And you can see a bit on the left in the graph in this figure that we are trying to work with different puzzle pieces throughout the program. So we have very extensive stakeholder dialogue. We have this policy element. We have the financing element. We are looking into technology and demonstration projects. Of course, dissemination and capacity building are also very relevant elements here. Next slide, please. So as mentioned as the first point in the figure shown, the stakeholder dialogue is a key element, and the stakeholders concerned are coming from 3 different, let's say, corners maybe. So we have the policy stakeholders, that's very prominently the NOUs, of course, but we are also involving other ministries concerned and other authorities in all the partner countries. Then we have the technology and market participants. So that's, for example, the manufacturers of the cooling equipment and cooling products, the sector association, but also individual technicians, project developers, engineers, training institutions. So that's the variety of industry represented. And we are also involving the finance stakeholders. So that's the representatives from the financial institutions, from the banks, from different financing schemes. And we are establishing throughout this project a dialogue for exchange between these different groups. Next slide, please. This slide shows the timeline of this program. As you can see, it's not a short-term project, but it's intended to run until the end of 2026. And it gives a bit the different work streams. That's these blue arrows. You can see that the market status and prospects arrow has started already. So we've been working on reports and data collection in this field already. There are different elements in terms of stakeholder consultation and also capacity building, awareness raising. So we have 3 regional conferences planned throughout the project timeline, and hope, of course, that despite COVID, this will be possible to implement. We have different knowledge and dissemination activities throughout the project. We have 2 study tours planned, different trainings, technology demonstrations to address all these different puzzle pieces and clusters that were mentioned before as part of this holistic understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for your good input. We are working to make this an interactive event as possible, and would welcome audience questions for our experts for the coming Q&A session, please. Please enter your questions into the chat box, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible. Meanwhile, we would like to move on to our next Mentimeter question. Please direct your attention to the link in the chat box again, and we kindly invite you to move on to the poll question. You can put the Mentimeter on the screen, please. And the question goes, what is the most effective factor for natural refrigeration technologies or technologies that use natural refrigeration to become mainstream. I know that we have several experts on their topic amongst our audience today, so we would really welcome what do you see the most enabling factor or the most advantageous characteristics, or what is the factor that will support these technologies to become mainstream. I see that the results are coming in. And of course, one of the highest ranking one is the cost effectiveness. Yes, we know in all energy efficiency and sustainability discipline that the cost effectiveness is an important decision factor for the purchase. So that comes high on the ranking. We see that supply and availability, indeed, as long as it is in the market and available, it increases the chance of becoming more and more mainstream. Environmental advantages is also, as far as I see, the third ranking. Indeed, I think there's a whole shift in psychology in the globe that the environmental crisis is being acknowledged, and this is also getting higher on the decision-making process for the purchase. And user awareness goes hand in hand with that. That's true. So I think we have more or less have a clear picture. And I thank you very much once again for the audience who provided their insights to the question. And once again, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and we are going to address them towards the end of the event. So moving on, now I would like to introduce Markus Offerman from Guidehouse to give a deeper dive into sustainable cooling technologies and what their potentials are. Thank you, Markus.
Thank you, and hello, audience. I'm very pleased to give you a short introduction into our understanding on sustainable cooling technologies. And to illustrate that, I hope you can see my presentation because I don't see it, so I have to look on the left. I want to show you a picture. Now I see it. Please, next page. Please have a look on the graph on the left side. There we have, so it's an example of an apartment building with air conditioning split units. And if you look on the graph on the right side, you see the total global warming impact in terms of CO2 emissions or equivalent CO2 emissions of different variants of that building. Starting from the status quo on the left side, we see that this building has two types of emissions. It's the direct emissions coming from the refrigerants and the indirect emissions coming from the energy demand and the related CO2 emissions to produce this energy demand. So to bring that down, we can implement energy efficiency improvement measures. These can be on building level, but this can also be on system level. As you can see, these measures are enabled to bring down the energy need or the CO2 emissions in total significantly. In the next step, if we supply these buildings or this building then with renewable energy, in that case, on-site PV, as we have reduced the energy demand already so far, it is possible to eliminate the indirect emissions already completely, but still remaining are the equivalent direct CO2 emissions. And to bring it completely down to zero, we need to switch to another system. In that case, to propane operated split units. And then we end up really with zero emissions. So the message here is sustainable, climate neutral, sustainable cooling is available already now. Next slide, please. Here I want to give you a brief overview about the different options in the different fields. So For energy efficiency on building level, the key measures are for sure solar shading, but also load reduction, as well as measures on the building shell, airtight and high quality building shell, but also about ventilation, controlled ventilation, nighttime ventilation, and there are, depending on the building, also several options to bring down the energy demand. Another field of energy improvement is about the systems. The systems, meaning in that case, example is air conditioning systems. There, for sure, this is about efficient components, but also, especially if you think of central systems, it's about adequate demand-adapted control, as well as thinking about the right distribution systems. In that case, for example, water is much more efficient than air as distribution. For sure, it's maintenance or other things like window contacts, which stops air conditioning running when the window is open. On the second pillar, the renewable energy on-site, we have on-site and off-site. On-site, it's mainly about solar PV or solar thermal. To have a complete coverage, we need some storages usually, and off-site we would have additionally wind as renewable energy supply options. But then the last point, and I would say in our project the most relevant point, it's about the alternatives to F-gas refrigerant options. And the most prominent alternatives for compression chillers are compression chillers with natural refrigerants. So there are different options in different fields. So for individual split units, there are propane split units on the market. For supermarket cooling, I just name examples, but there are transcritical CO2 solutions. Central chillers are available with different natural refrigerants such as ammonia, propane, CO2, but also water. And in case of standalone refrigerators, which are also in the scope of our project, isopropane, isobutane, and propane are options and solutions here. Besides that, there are also other solutions to F-gas refrigerants, like thermal sorption chillers, adsorption and absorption, but also passive cooling options like groundwater or seawater, or not-in-kind technologies. So you see, there are a lot of options, and as said before, climate neutral cooling is available and possible already now. The technologies are there. With that, I want to close my part. Thank you.
Marcus, thanks very much for the insights. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mohammed Salhin from one of our partner organizations, Integrated Development Group, IDG, from Egypt, to share his insights from program implementation in Egypt. The floor is yours, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Nation, and welcome to all to our event. I'll just try to give you a brief overview of what we're doing in implementation of the project in Egypt. Next slide, please. Just looking at the prospect of global warming and the impact of non-efficient cooling on our lives, life is not going to be easy if we don't take any actions towards change and increase in temperature and our energy demand. Studies already have shown that the peaks of needing for cooling will be significantly changing and will be significantly putting pressure on the overall system of energy, and of course ultimately resulting in more and more global warming. Next slide, please. And in our previous studies and in the preparation of the project, we have identified that looking at energy consumption in Egypt, there is around 56% of the energy used in commercial buildings are only being used for HVAC systems, and within the residential sector, 26% of the energy used is for refrigeration and space cooling. Looking at emissions from the refrigeration and air conditioning sectors in Egypt, we have the business as usual and the mitigation scenarios being also studied. And it's clear that without doing nothing, impact is great. And it's not only the direct, but it's even more severe on the indirect emissions from the inefficient cooling systems. Next slide, please. As we said, we have, I think, a good fertile soil to have our project implemented. For example, in Egypt, the national strategy for 2030, the vision already includes a lot of actions on energy sector, reducing the intensity of energy consumption. And Egypt is committed for cooling demand reduction and has a responsibility to the HVAC industry to replace the high GWP HFC refrigerants. Also, Egypt is committed to the Montreal Protocol, as in the process of ratifying the Kigali Amendment. Finally, by 2030, Egypt should have phased out polluting refrigerants and will freeze the baseline consumption level in 2024. And of course, starting phasing down the use of HFCs. Next slide, please. In CoolUp in 2021, we have already identified the country needs in the preparation for the project, calibrating the project concept and identifying the stakeholders and their needs. And then we moved directly to the market status study using the interviews and desktop review of current policies, and also collecting market data and so on and so that. When it comes to the stakeholder engagement, we have already had a kickoff meeting with the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency and met public sectors, technical and financial sectors, and already conducted with our partners in the other countries a meeting with national ozone units in all 4 countries. Next slide, please. So in the core or the work package of policy, we did the regulatory analysis, we did interviews, identified support areas that are needed for the policy reform. In technology, we prepared a technology catalog of existing catalogs being used in the market, and identified ongoing projects, because of course we don't want to overlap or duplicate the work, but also build some synergies with other relevant initiatives. Identified existing training opportunities and capacity building, which are actually a few of them out there, and in order for us to top that up with what might be missing. For financial, we conducted a questionnaire on current status and interest of funding agencies, and finally identified bilateral interviews and took some lessons learned out of that. Next slide, please. Key insights. So just to give you a feeling of what kind of results we found. On the level of policy, despite the fact that Egypt failed to develop a national cooling plan, but there are already some laws being issued or discussed on regulating the use of an import of ODSs and equipment. Also, there are few standards and codes for cooling appliances, energy efficiency labeling, district cooling codes, and so on. For the technology, the use of efficient compressors are currently very active in the market. However, they are being imported. Refrigerants are also imported, and there is a trend of shifting from the HCFC 22 to R410. And on the financial core, the HCFC phase-out management plan has been already in place and being supported by the government. And there is a large green bond. It's actually the first of its kind in the country, possibly in the region, totaling to around 750 million US dollars for large-scale green projects that may include sustainable cooling. Next slide, please. Now try to take you to projects on ground or practice on ground. As we said, the project is trying to link the research and the findings methodologically with what's happening on ground. So we're looking at projects and what's happening in them. An example of that is Al Alamein University, a new project being implemented, started construction like 3 years ago. And we looked at the measures being used. So first we started looking at the passive measures being used in the design of the campus and in the buildings, identifying these components as of notions that have been introduced to the modern or current practices of design. Next slide, please. So the use of courtyards, natural lighting, facade directions, and proportion of windows, insulation of walls, use of thick walls, all of that has been incorporated in the project as a passive measure. Next slide, please. More importantly is the use of district cooling plant. In this specific project, like I think many others right now are running, the use of district cooling plants are being looked at as an efficient cooling instrument, and more being adopted by these large projects. Next slide, please. Looking at that district cooling, the reason why it's being used mainly to reduce energy. So it's being looked at as reducing energy consumption by up to around 35% of energy. The investment as a capital is being looked at also in respect to the reduction of the running cost, with subsidy to energy being diminishing. And also on this slide, it shows that there is still some room for improvement for cooler project, because the refrigerant being used is still the HFC 134A. So we believe that even with this trend, CoolUp is also having a footstep in order to make things better. Next slide, please. From the financial sector landscape, we identified this green bond. There is a first sovereign offering of climate-friendly debt instrument in the MENA, and Egypt is also financing a portfolio of green projects, including green transportation, renewable energy, and sustainable water management. Within the private sector initiatives, there is these projects financed by the IFC, and the first private sector green bond being also introduced, and an increase of lending to business that want to invest in eco-friendly initiatives have been also spotted within our survey. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Salhin. Thank you very much. Now we have a bit of time remaining for the questions and answers session. I would like to invite all our speakers to switch their cameras on, please. We have received some questions in the chat box, and we will go through a few of them also in view of time. Thanks to all of our participants for their interest and questions so far. So we have one question. I think if that's okay, Barbara can pick that up. And it goes, to what extent can the CoolUp program support other countries in promoting sustainable cooling?
Yes, of course, I can pick that one up. Thank you. I assume that this does refer to countries that are not partner countries. So, of course, I highlighted in my slides that we will have these regional conferences, and those will also be extended to participants from countries that are not specifically partner countries of the COOLAB program. So this would be an opportunity to engage further and to also profit from the experiences made in this program. Furthermore, we will have a variety of outreach materials and publications that are coming out of this project and that will be available in different languages that are also spoken in other countries, of course. So you can check on the outputs that are available. And of course, please stay tuned on our activities through the different tools that we are using for dissemination. So we have a newsletter, we have the web page where different materials are constantly being published and available, and can also be shared, of course, with whoever is interested. I hope that sufficiently answers, but Nishan, feel free to add. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. I guess it was indeed. We are going to work on social media to disseminate the information we collect and create as wide as possible, not only in the region, but also as much as possible in the other countries. Thank you. We have one more question, and I think that is, so that's about Egypt. Dr. Mohamed Safin, if you don't mind. And the question is, what is the share of natural refrigerant equipment in the total cooling capacity in air conditioning in Egypt? So what is the currently used natural refrigerant equipment share in the stock already? I can imagine that is a bit too quantitative and may not be able to give a very accurate answer, but at least your estimates could be helpful.
Well, the code for natural refrigerants have been recently being issued. So I think the studies on that are still being ongoing, but it's not a big share of it. It's definitely something between 2–3%, not more. And I think with the code being activated and the tendency towards the finance of these more green solutions increasing, this percent will definitely develop in the near future.
All right, thank you very much. I see there's one more question. How would this project engage with existing programs in the NOUs on implementing the Kigali Agreement? To what extent are National Ozone Office supporting this program? I think I can take this one, if that's okay with the others, and you can complement. So basically, when we were also structuring the program itself, we gave an increased attention to this one because we are aware the same topics are also being covered by the National Ozone Unit's business as usual operations. There is multilateral funding also working on this. And the core idea is to stay very aligned with the National Ozone offices in our partner countries, to have regular meetings with them and exchange with what is going in the country, and also to build up the program annually in terms of its action list and prioritize which activities we can support in alignment with the other programs and funding organizations that are already in the country. So our increased attention is on extremely not duplicating the activities that are being done, but finding out the complementary areas and working on these aspects throughout the 6 years, because we see that there will be a lot of opportunities to complement the ongoing efforts on this area. I hope that also answers the question. I'm just checking if there are any more, and also in terms of timing, I think we're at the end of our session. I would like to ask Ms. Munsat if you would like to have any closing words, any final remarks.
Yes, thank you. It was very interesting to listen to the presentations and to see how far the planning is already developed. And we are very much looking forward to seeing more in the future on this promising project. And maybe during the next MOP, or at least augmented working group already, we can have some further information on the progress made in our partner countries, which are very dedicated, I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Munset. And I would like to thank all our speakers for their time and insights today, also to our audience for their engagement and input to our questions and for their questions. I would like to invite everyone to stay in touch with CoolUp program. You can visit our website. Alex, maybe you can put the slide on with our website address, and also on social media. You can register our newsletter, which we will give regular updates on the ongoing program activities, what's coming up, and the information we have gathered from the program activities. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you a very nice time for the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much from my side.